The town felt frozen in time, caught somewhere between the mountains and the fog. The streets were narrow. The air smelled of wet earth and rust, and the few people I passed just stared. Their eyes followed me like I didn't belong there, like they knew something I didn't. No one said a word, but their silence said everything. Grandma's cabin sat high on a hill surrounded by twisted pine trees. The old wood creaked under my steps, but there was still something familiar about the place, like it had been waiting for someone to come back. The windows were fogged over, the air thick with dust and old perfume. On the table, piles of things that once belonged to her. Clothes, letters, boxes full of pieces of her life that I was supposed to sort through. Decide what stayed, what would be forgotten. While I was in her bedroom, I noticed something that made me stop. A folded scarf on the dresser, still marked with moisture, as if someone had just touched it. It was strange, but since I couldn't be sure if I'd done it and forgotten, I didn't think much of it. At least, not right then. The sun was disappearing behind the hills when I realized how dark the cabin was getting inside. The dim yellow light from the old lamp stretched long shadows across the walls. I was folding clothes, trying to stay busy, when I heard a dry, hollow sound from the porch. A knock, then another. 3 slow, spaced knocks on the wood. It took a few seconds for me to understand. It was someone at the door. For a moment I froze. My heartbeat was so loud it filled the silence. No one knew I was here. Hardly anyone even lived nearby. I went to the side window and carefully pushed the curtain aside. Through the mist, I could see a tall figure standing still at the door. Miss Eve? The man's voice came through the fog, rough, old, distant, like it was crawling out of another time. My body went cold. No one had called my grandmother that name in years. For a split second I almost answered, but something about his voice stopped me. It sounded familiar somehow, like a memory I couldn't place. The figure moved. He stepped off the porch and started circling the cabin slowly. I crouched down, staying low beneath the window. The curtains were heavy, but the light from inside was enough to show his shadow sliding along the walls. His steps were slow, deliberate, scraping against the wood. "I know you're in there," he said, his voice now quieter, almost patient. "Don't bother hiding. I can feel you." Every muscle in my body tensed. His shadow stopped near the kitchen wall. Then softer, almost whispering, he spoke again. "You should open the door." "You shouldn't have come back here." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the cabin breathing with me, the wood stretching and settling under the cold. Each sound made it worse, too real to be imagination. He came back to the front door and knocked again, harder this time. 3 heavy blows that made the frame shake. The echo rolled through the room like thunder. "I don't want to hurt anyone." His voice cracked, almost crying now. "I just want what's mine. You know what it is." I didn't move. Every word felt heavier than the one before. His tone drifted between pleading and threat. And deep down, I knew he wasn't just asking to come in. He was demanding to be remembered. Then came the scraping sound. Slow, deliberate. Nails dragging across the wood of the door. I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from making a sound. The scratching stopped, and the air felt thinner, emptier. My eyes caught on the locks. Thick metallic bolts recently installed. Grandma must have added them not long before she died. Why would she need that much security way out here? Another hit, louder. The door trembled, then silence again. No more voice, just the presence. I checked every window, peeking through the cracks of the curtains. Nothing. Just the fog shifting outside, heavy and slow. The quiet wrapped around me like something alive. I sat on the couch, my hands still shaking, trying to stay awake. But my body gave in. Somewhere between fear and exhaustion, I fell asleep. Birds woke me up. Morning light leaked through the curtains, pale and cold. For a moment I thought it had all been a dream. but the muddy footprints near the door and the scarf on the dresser said otherwise. I searched through the cabin, opening drawers, looking for something, anything, that might explain what he wanted. Nothing made sense. Every object felt heavier now, as if it carried a secret I wasn't meant to find. I packed fast, didn't bother folding anything, locked the door without looking back. The road down the hill was narrow, swallowed by the overgrown grass on both sides. The engine sounded too loud in the silence. The sun hadn't fully risen, and fog still covered everything, moving slowly like it had a mind of its own. My eyes kept flicking to the rearview mirror. At first, nothing. Then, lights. 2 faint headlights in the distance, following the same winding road. I told myself it was nothing. Someone else leaving town early. Maybe a farmer or a delivery truck. But every time I turned, the lights turned too. Never getting closer, never fading away. Just there. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. I took a deep breath and pressed the gas a little harder. The lights matched my speed. My chest felt tight. The air inside the car felt thinner. When I crossed the narrow bridge, the tires scraped against the concrete and my heart almost stopped. I looked again. The lights were still there. For a second I thought about stopping, getting out, facing whatever it was. But something inside me said, "Don't." So I didn't. I just kept driving. When the fog finally started to lift, I looked one last time into the mirror. The road behind me was empty. No lights, no sound, just silence. I kept driving, not caring anymore who would clean out Grandma's things. I just knew I wasn't going back to that cabin. The smell of damp wood, the echo of that voice calling for Miss Eve. It all stayed behind, buried under the fog, and whatever secret she kept went with her too. The car rolled to a stop in front of the cabin just before dusk, and the cold mountain air poured in through the open windows, sharp enough to sting my skin. We were laughing, worn out from the drive, our backpacks dropped on the porch, the old wood creaking under our feet. The place was small, smelled like pine and fresh coffee, the kind of hideout that feels too safe to be real. The guys were hyped about the trail, loud and making plans. I didn't want to go. I just wanted to stay inside, wrapped in a blanket with a book, listening to the soft rain tapping against the trees. When they left, the silence spread through the house like smoke. The cabin felt alive, breathing with me. It was getting dark, and the fire danced in the fireplace, casting shadows that stretched across the walls. I tried to read but couldn't focus. I kept feeling like someone was watching me. The air felt heavy, like the forest outside was quietly staring back. I tried to laugh it off, told myself it was just exhaustion. But the woods were quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't soothe you. It listens. Still smelling the coffee I'd made earlier, that warm scent clinging to the air, I suddenly wanted another cup. I knew there was still plenty left in the thermos. I'd filled it to the brim. I poured more, trying to calm my heart, but my mind kept drifting to the others. They should have been back by now. Did they take a longer route? They know better than to stay on the trail after dark. The woods were quiet. Too quiet. People talk about strange things happening out here, especially dangerous for women. Lost in that spiral, I realized I'd left my mug on the kitchen counter. The fire no longer warmed my hands the way it had, and a chill ran through me. I walked toward the kitchen, avoiding the windows. I kept looking behind me without even realizing it, my instincts checking the empty air. When I reached the mug, my stomach dropped. It was half empty. But I hadn't drunk that much. I was sure I hadn't. My heart raced, thoughts scattering in every direction. I felt like I wasn't alone. Maybe one of them had come back and was messing with me. Maybe I drank it and forgot. That had to be it. Something wasn't right. Then I heard it. Soft creaks above me, like light footsteps in the ceiling. The silence was so loud after those creaks, heavy enough to swallow the sound of my own breath. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. I stood there in the kitchen, eyes fixed on the ceiling, my body locked up like the air had turned solid. Another creak, sharper now, directly above the living room. The firelight flickered, shadows moving like something upstairs was shifting along with it. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was out there. But it wasn't out there, it was inside. I forced myself to breathe, to believe it was just the wind against the boards, or an animal trapped somewhere above. I grabbed my phone, its pale light shaking in my hands. No signal, no messages, no sound but the persistent creaks and my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I kept feeling like someone was watching me. The fear spread slowly over my shoulders like a fever creeping upward. The clock on the wall read 9:07 p.m. They'd been gone for almost 3 hours. They knew better than that. Something wasn't right. It felt like the cabin itself was waiting. I took one step, then another, the floor groaning under my weight. I glanced at the stairs. The air there felt colder, almost metallic. It was getting dark again, darker, even with the fireplace still burning, even with the dim kitchen light. I climbed the first step carefully, the second faster, hearing the sound echo inside the walls. Halfway up, the creaking stopped. The silence was so loud it felt like it was screaming inside my head. That's when it hit me. The coffee wasn't the only thing out of place. Something was upstairs. The room was small, filled with old furniture and a cracked window that let in a cold draft. The curtain swayed softly, its rustle echoing my heartbeat. My eyes scanned the space, mapping every detail. Then I saw it. Another door, tucked beside the wardrobe. The bathroom. And it was open. Just a sliver, but open. That thin slice of black looked darker than everything else in the room. I swallowed hard and stepped back, as if that could erase what I'd just seen. The smell changed near the door. Damp, soapy, and faintly metallic. The hallway light barely reached inside, just enough to show the edge of the sink and the floor. Mud streaked across the tiles like someone had walked in with dirty shoes. For a moment, I felt trapped, like any movement would draw attention from something I couldn't see but could feel. That tiny, stupid detail, a bathroom door cracked open inside a bedroom, felt like a warning. The coffee, the empty cup, the mud on the floor, the time they'd been gone. It all stacked up. My whole body trembled without me realizing it. Every muscle ready to run but frozen. I hovered in the doorway, torn between closing it, calling someone, or stepping inside. Deep down, a faint voice whispered that something awful was about to happen. I stayed there, my body humming with that thick, dangerous silence. The air was heavy. The fire downstairs popped softly, muffled by the walls. And then, without warning, the silence broke. The bathroom door groaned open another few inches, slow and deliberate. The sound was sharp, a long, grating squeal, the kind of noise only old wood and rusted hinges make. It ripped through the room like a muffled scream. My heart slammed against my ribs, and my body moved before my brain caught up. Instinct took over. My legs bolted on their own, fast and desperate. I tore down the hallway, stumbling over the carpet, breath short and stomach lurching. Behind me, the door gave one last groan before going silent. I didn't think. I just ran. My hand slammed the front door open so hard it hit the wall with a crash. The cold night air hit me like a blade, and the darkness swallowed me whole. But whatever was outside felt safer than what stayed in. My head spun with images of what could have been waiting behind that door, standing in the dark, watching. Every story I'd ever heard about girls alone flashed through my mind. Stories that leave scars that never fade. I thought about running toward the trail, but it was pitch black. My phone was still inside. No flashlight, no direction, just the moon slicing through the trees. I tried to breathe, to tell myself it was just the wind or a prank. Maybe one of the guys had come back early. Maybe someone wanted to scare me. Or worse, maybe someone had followed us. My chest tightened. I realized I was hyperventilating. Then I heard it. Laughter. Low, dragged out, far away. For a second, my body unclenched. It had to be them. I didn't even notice I was crying until I felt the tears running warm down my cold cheeks. I ran toward the sound, tripping on rocks, calling their names. The laughter drifted, always a little farther ahead. I pushed harder, my breath burning, until a hand grabbed my arm from behind. I screamed raw and loud. I turned, and it was one of my friends. His face unreadable, his smile not reaching his eyes. He wasn't alone. The others appeared behind him. They asked what happened, and when I told them, they all exhaled. Then they laughed, said it was all in my head. The cabin was old. I'd spooked myself. They searched the place top to bottom. Nothing, not a trace. That night I refused to sleep alone. We crammed into one room. No one complained. We tried to joke it off, but the laughter didn't last. As the lights went out, I kept thinking about the friend who'd found me first, wondering if it had all been my imagination. But no matter how hard I tried to convince myself, a part of me still knew. Someone had been watching me, waiting for me to be alone. Maybe a stranger, maybe one of us.